Welcome to One Man's Tracks, the second-hand CD channel, and today we are talking about the Violent Femmes. It's a band that originally formed in Milwaukee, Wisconsin as just a duo in 1980 with Brian Ritchie and Victor DiLorenzo, just a bassist and drummer, until they went and saw Gordon Gano and his brother performing one evening, and they found his Lou Reed-esque vocalizations and lyrical stylings to be something that would match up with the sound they were trying to create, and so 1981, the Violent Femmes were known as the trio that their kind of core is today still. They were kind of unable to be a band that rehearsed a whole lot. Being in a basement with the sun shining through the windows kind of pulled them outdoors to the streets where they'd busk and build some chemistry together and get some crowd sense. They also were kind of forced to be buskers and street performers because none of the clubs were allowing them to play with their unique acoustic rock blend that they had going, and so one day while they were outside of one of the performance venues, James Honeyman Scott of the Pretenders saw them performing and asked them to open up for them. While that singular performance didn't do a ton for the band career-wise, it gave them a huge boost of confidence that they needed to continue striving forward and pushing their sound out to more people. It's something that they've paid forward now in modern times with them picking out local acts to open for them and perform with them when they go out on shows. The Violent Femmes sound is more clearly influenced by the alternative psych rock behemoths, the Velvet Underground, as well as the more pop-punky Ramones, but they seem to be crossing over into nearly every single facet of American music, from bluegrass and folk to jazz and swing. They use these non-invasive instrumental techniques that really do well to highlight Gordon's quirky and vulnerable vocalizations that has just created such an enduring fusion sound. This spontaneous, even reckless trio never sought out to make commercially viable music, only to speak from their hearts and hope that somebody who hears it can connect with it, and that's reflected in their slow but steady sales of their eventually platinum debut album. 8 years after its release, this is a touchstone of 80s rock music. Recorded in July of '82, released in April of '83, the Violent Femmes' self-titled debut album through Slash Records and produced by Mark Van Hecke. This is Violent Femmes. Since its release, it's been an anthem for the frustrated and beaten down. Violent Femmes is a timeless record, not dated by any 80s production techniques. The brilliant songwriting is perfectly clear, not placed into a mix, but so well highlighted by the phenomenal bass playing and the gently brushed percussives. As much as they're an uncompromising unit, this still remains their most popular and accessible album, but even with songs like Blister in the Sun, Add It Up, and Gone Daddy Gone being the dance floor fill-in hits that they are, there's still more clearly psychedelic folk rock numbers that are influenced by a punk energy rather than any pop sensibilities that might spring up here and there, like with some of the harmonies that are reminiscent of something you'd hear off a Beach Boys or a Beatles album that are not really possible to ignore because they're so damn catchy. I'm not even saying that they took it from there, because it's not like the Beach Boys and the Beatles invented harmonies, but I feel like this album has just the exact same value that some of those early Beach Boys, Beatles albums have, so high praise for the Violent Femmes and this debut album. I've sure got a lot of great stuff to say about this, and I'm excited to hear what your thoughts are on this 80s essential and the Femmes in general. Leave me a comment down below. If you're new to this, click the top link in the description to give it a listen, and I'm now going to be taking a few minutes to go over the track list in greater detail and break down some of these delectable numbers. Starting out with the opening track, their biggest hit, the undeniable Blister in the Sun.
When I'm a-walking, I struck my stuff, I am so strung out. I'm high as a kite, I just might stop to check you out.
Let me go on like a blister in the sun. Let me go on Oh man, this song is an instant classic. But Gano had actually originally written it when he was a teenager, auditioning for some girls' band that he wanted to be a part of. And lucky for him, that didn't end up going anywhere, and he got to save this track for the Femmes. This song's energy is just so good that sometimes I have to just skip it and leave it for the end to make just a bursting finale to send this album off, but ultimately it ends up hooking me back into the rest of the track list and sending me back through again. This song also created one of the biggest breakups for this band when Gano allowed Wendy's to use their song in a commercial, and Richie would then sue him for half of the royalties in the Femmes, ending up disbanding the group for, I believe it was almost 15 years, maybe just 5 years. I think they got back together in 2013 for Coachella, and then they kind of slowly worked things out from there. From there we get the incredibly dynamic song Kiss Off that packs so much into its less than 3-minute run time. I normally find counting segments in songs pretty tiresome, but I love the way it's done here. Such defiance and frustration in Gordon's delivery. This one's another masterpiece. Please Do Not Go beckons you in with some broken-hearted folky beach rock, and then there's this pair of lines in the middle here that sound identical in cadence and delivery to what you get from a Hobo Johnson song, kind of that exact same squeaky signature affectation. It may be where he found his voice from, is listening to this, but it might just be a strange coincidence. Either way, then things turn a little more raunchy, a little more intense. The frustrations mount on the awesome track Add It Up. There's just such a richness to the front half of this LP. It turns what is a just over 40-minute album with the bonus tracks included there into an entire event. This is really a monumental debut album. This album's longest track, Confessions, is also its bluesiest cut, slowing down to a marching pace, but eventually it kind of devolves into this chaotic, tangled up torrent of strings that fades away, and you get a softer, more subdued Gano coming in, delivering the closing passage, but it sounds almost like he's been defeated by the end of this song. That feeling of dejection returns, though, for the darker track To The Kill. It's another excellent example of this band's chemistry, especially the chemistry between Gord and Brian, where they've just got this way of complementing and highlighting each other's strongest suits, and just comes together brilliantly, and they're just getting started here. Gone Daddy Gone then feels like the celebration of acceptance, that the love you wanted so badly is it's over, and you're just gonna have to try your best to be carefree and dance those feelings away. The closer before the bonus tracks is titled Good Feeling, and it leaves you with just that. It's this heartfelt, reminiscent track, soft, longing, and it leaves you longing for this album to continue on a bit more, and thankfully on CD it does, with Ugly and Gimme the Car. The first being exemplary of the tongue-in-cheek quality that a ton of Gano's lyrics and delivery has, and then you get another reckless, darker number with Gimme the Car that is both incredibly fun and a bit disturbing. It's one of the reasons I tend to go back and cleanse my palate with another listen of Blister in the Sun before inevitably getting sucked right back in as soon as Kiss Off starts up again. There's not much more I could say that probably hasn't already been said about this nearly 40-year-old classic. I couldn't believe my luck when I found it over the holidays, and I am so impressed by how well it's aged. It's a fabulous hook into the Violent Femmes and their progressive rockabilly music. The band's been fairly productive during their times together, with them quickly following this album up with Hallowed Ground, a more blues, folk, and gospel-oriented album that unfortunately was highly criticized at the time and is now a Americana staple project, so these guys had far more foresight than a lot of the people surrounding them, and that is clear. And even if that wasn't the direction you wanted them to head in, thankfully for those poppier listeners, they teamed up with Talking Heads' Jerry Harrison to come out with their third album shortly after that, with The Blind Leading the Naked. They disbanded for the first time in '87. Gano went off and released a gospel album, DeLorenzo a solo album, and Richie 3 solo projects of his own. Back together in '88, they'd come out with the album 3. Then they'd sign with Reprise Records in '91, come out with Why Do Birds Sing. 1994, you get New Times. '95, you get Rock. And then 2000 would see the band's final studio release for over 16 years with Freak Magnet. The band may have broken up a number of times over the years, parting ways with DeLorenzo, working on several of their own materials, but they've found a way so far to set aside their differences once again, and in 2016 they came out with We Can Do Anything, and 2019 saw the release of their 10th studio album, Hotel Last Resort. And so, fingers crossed for a 40th anniversary tour of this incredible debut album, and let me know a time that you got to see this band in concert. I'd love to hear about it down in the comments below. Leave a like for making it this far in the video, subscribe for next week's secondhand band. Thank you so much for watching. Check out some more reviews and go on like a blister in the sun. Let's go on.